True living Africa. True living Africa.
Hello, Africa. Welcome to True Living Africa. I am Uyok Hansen.
And I am Oyin Talabi.
And we are your wellness coaches. We're here to support you on your journey to stay well. Follow us on Instagram at True Living Africa, at Africa Business Radio on Instagram, Twitter, and www.africabusinessradio.com. Now, today we have something special for our audience. We're starting a series called the Obesity Series. Mm-hmm. Big deal.
Very big deal.
And fitness and the fitness trends have been all the rage. And, people have kind of wondered, how come, fitness really took Nigeria by storm? Especially the Lagos, the main cities, Lagos, Abuja, and so forth. And it just kind of seemed like a trend. But what people don't realize is that obesity basically became one of the world's
leading causes of
death,
of illnesses,
mm-hmm.
The underlying causes of a lot of illnesses.
Right. And obesity is one of the world's number one health problems.
Yeah.
And the reason why obesity had become such a big deal is because it's chronic, and also because it is basically the precursor to many other kinds of conditions. And I'm sure we hear this all the time. Obesity would, lead
to diabetes,
type 2 diabetes,
mm-hmm.
lead to high blood pressure, hypertension. And, hypertension is the silent killer of our breadwinners in Africa.
Yeah.
Certain cancers, and even on the psychological side, obesity would lead to, low self-esteem, lack of confidence, in some cases, social isolation and depression.
Yeah.
So obesity is a big deal, and it's something it's a big issue, and it's something that we're going to be talking about over the next few episodes. What does it mean to be obese? And how do you, quote and unquote, cure it, if you will?
Yeah.
How do you live with it? How do you get rid of it? And different strategies that you can use. And so we're gonna dig in.
So I guess a good place to start will be to talk about some of the causes of obesity.
Mm-hmm.
And also we have lack of physical activity,
right,
as one. Then we also have overeating.
Yes.
And then we have genetics. So people have always asked the question that, is there a fat cell?
Gene.
A fat gene.
Yeah.
The answer is actually yes, there is a fat gene. Some people are just designed to have more body fat than others.
Mm-hmm.
And also there is that. Then there's also having a diet that is high in simple carbohydrates. There's that whole, frequency of eating comes back to overeating.
Right.
And also you're eating too much without expending all the energy. Mm-hmm. Then there are medications.
Right.
So some medications can throw off your system. So if you're taking particularly things like that contain steroids in them,
right,
most people tend to have issues with those. Then also there are psychological issues,
mm-hmm.
Factors as well that can cause obesity, that can lead to obesity. So a traumatic event,
right,
can lead to that. And then there are also now other lifestyle issues that, the jury is still out as to how do we classify these kind of diseases. So there's hypothyroidism, there's insulin resistance,
mm-hmm.
there's PCOS as well. There's Cushing's syndrome. So there are these other diseases that can lead to obesity.
Yeah.
And so I'm particularly because I have a fitness background. Most people, I also was the opinion that, okay, if someone is obese, it's because they're not moving.
Right. It was their
enough. They're overeating.
Yeah,
they were overeating and not moving enough. And, it was all about, okay, take this meal plan and try it and blah, blah, blah and move. And then, as I delved more into the wellness part of it and lifestyle part of it, realized that no, there's so many other issues that can affect obesity that has absolutely nothing to do with physical activity and what people are eating. Even though the eating part it's also tied in, but it's not the root cause.
It just makes it harder. So what it is,
it's not always the root cause. And for us to have lasting experiences or lasting success in anything, it's always best to go to the root cause.
Right.
What is the root cause for this person's obesity? Because it's not always the same for everybody, as we've listed.
Right.
And all. So how does one then move forward?
Yeah. So it's like you said, spot on is different for different people.
Yeah.
But generally speaking, though, it is when, it's in the medical community, you define obesity as obese conditions as when you take in too much more calories and energy than you actually expend. So that's sort of the foundation of the problem.
Yeah.
So things like you said, like the medical, the underlying medical conditions like polycystic ovarian syndrome, PCOS, or hyperthyroidism, those are conditions that would make it more difficult for an obese person to lose weight. And some medication will make people put on weight.
Yeah.
Where they weren't putting on weight before. But it's also still kind of tied to energy in and energy out. But in some cases, like I heard, like there are cases where people say, oh, but I eat, like I've dieted all my way down to like 500 calories and I'm not losing any weight and so forth. Then in those cases, you then really want to look at your underlying.
Yeah, I guess even from what you've said and, just processing it, it all comes down to a metabolic problem. There's something affecting your metabolism.
Right.
So that you're not efficiently burning off the energy that you're taking in.
Right.
So something is affecting it.
Exactly.
And so it's now to find what's the cause, what's affecting your own or this person's metabolic problems.
Right.
So obesity is, in essence, a metabolic problem.
Yes, it's a
simple way
it's a simple way of
looking at it.
Absolutely. And in case you're wondering who you define as obese or overweight, there's a simple test where the BMI test. If your BMI is over 30, 25, I think it's 25.
If you're about 30, 35 years old and your BMI is greater than 30, then you are obese.
Yeah, so that's like obese level 2. The obese level 1 is a BMI of 25 to 30.
Level 1, level 2.
Yes, there's level 2 obesity and there's level 3 obesity. We know those kinds where, people have to be lifted. They no longer can move efficiently and so
those
forth.
Ones, I'm convinced at that particular point in time that is now more of a psychological issue. There's an addiction problem that is going on. And so even when we're saying psychological, it's not even necessarily that there was a trauma. It could just be an addiction problem, because a lot of these fast foods that we eat are full of additives. And so if you get addicted to something and then it's now a need, so it might not even be a physical addiction. It can also be that psychological comfort eating. There's a trigger.
Right.
And so you're eating to satisfy that
you're
trigger.
Emotional eating and especially when you're hooked on fast food. So when you eat
and most people like that tend to have enablers. Most, because there's somebody feeding them. If you have to be lifted up, that means you can't get your food yourself.
Oh, gotcha.
Somebody is enabling.
And even before you get to that place, right? I mean, that's the extreme. But before you even get to a place where you can't move and people have to bring food to you, when you're in a situation where part of the causes of obesity, like we said before, you're in a situation where you're eating a lot of calorie-dense foods.
Yeah, and not moving enough.
You know how I'm a big advocate of real food? Like you have to be able to trace, the grandparents of something you're eating. So, when food is real, it makes more sense than food that's not real. So not real, like processed, highly processed foods. When we eat even real foods that are very calorie dense, and I'll give you an example. Sometimes you say, oh, but plantain is, there's plantain, we have our
yam.
plantain, and we have our yams, and then we have our beans, then we have our chicken. On the face of it, all that looks good until you see how some of us prepare this stuff.
Yeah.
So imagine a bowl of fried plantain with beans porridge that's made with, loads of palm oil.
Yeah.
And then I have my chicken stew. Mind you, my stew is fried. And my
yam is fried.
My yam is fried. And my chicken was fried before I put it in the stew.
And then portions.
And then, yes. So I now eat,
portions.
I have large portions of that. So when we eat calorie-rich foods like that consistently, we get into a calorie surplus, which then we begin to see the pounds packing on over time, and you then start to be overweight, and that's really how obesity starts when you get into the overweight zone.
For some people, because I'm partial to those that have a metabolic problem.
Oh, of course.
I'm very partial because that side is always so underserved. I know, because I guess maybe having worked with women for so long, so many people would be exercising constantly and, like you said, eating very low calorie foods, just trying to manage that whole energy in and out, but it's still not shifting.
Well, I would say this, right? Usually, in my experience with clients who have got underlying medical conditions like PCOS and hormonal imbalances and so forth, with some, when they create a true calorie deficit, they are able to at least initially lose some.
They lose some weight. Yeah. Then they hit a plateau.
Yes. So what I think we need to know is that managing obesity through weight loss is not a linear process. It's not as simple as people make it sound like, week 1 I'm going to lose 5 pounds. Yeah. So it could be an 18-month journey, and
it could
also
be a 5-year journey.
It could be a 5-year journey.
Yeah.
And what happens with a lot of clients who present themselves with medical conditions like PCOS is that they psychologically already feel coming into the program that, I've got PCOS, I'm not going to be able to lose weight. But the truth is, I have treated clients with PCOS who have been able to successfully lose weight. And a lot of the challenges come from underreporting what they actually eat.
And use. Because I had a client who, sorry to cut in, who's wasn't shifting, concluded that this was a hormonal thing. But then she was like, and then upon further investigation, found out that she was taking birth control pills.
Right. And so there was
so that had thrown, that was what had thrown her hormones off. And it was like,
it just makes it more difficult. And so when you're able to pinpoint those things and, work around them, then, obesity management becomes easier.
It starts to make sense because like you said, it's not a linear thing. There's so many things that could be affecting. It could be toxins that your body is just intolerant to. That could be from your cleaning detergent.
Right.
Who knows?
And it could be, like you said, environmental factors.
Yeah.
And inflammation from the foods that we eat. And even you talked about the processed foods earlier. When we have too much processed foods, especially when we have the sugar and the sodas, we tend to, have, some people would have the Cokes or the sugary drinks 2-3 times a day, or what they call the packaged juices. Yeah. And they think it's fruit juice, and have that instead of water. And so there's a lot of calories going in and
that we're not accounting for.
Yes, and not enough movement. Another thing that happens with another underlying cause of obesity that we haven't mentioned is yo-yo dieting.
Actually, yes.
Yeah, so people who tend to diet a lot. I mean, research has shown that the people who dieted last year are the people who are overweight this year.
I actually wrote an article called Diets are meant to fail. They are designed to fail. And a part of me is like, a man probably designed the first diet because just to keep women in check.
Right.
I know, but I agree with you that yo-yo dieting is a cause of a lot of underlying
because of the starvation and the binging and the deprivation, the
and
overeating.
Just continue in that whole cycle
of eating disorders.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you never really get your lasting goals.
No.
Instead, you end up opening the door to other issues.
Right.
I know. But that's interesting. I haven't heard that, the dieters this year are the obese ones for next year.
Right, because it
makes sense.
It makes sense.
Because you fall off the wagon, you binge.
Right.
And then you're back to square
one. And then
one.
you're so discouraged, and then you just keep binging.
Yeah, and you're back to square one with more luggage because you now have the psychological issues of you failed. You failed at this diet. And then you now find another diet. You find the maple syrup diet. You find the Cambridge diet. And you just keep trying.
And the more luggage is not even just only psychological. It's also physiological because when you gain the weight back, you gain back a higher percentage of fat.
Yeah.
And your fat to muscle ratio increases. Because typically when people diet, they tend to lose muscle mass.
Yeah.
They sacrifice muscle for weight loss. Yes.
And then, for weight loss. Yes. And then that affects even your bone density as well.
Absolutely. And your metabolism, because now you haven't got metabolically active tissue. Your muscles are suffering.
Yeah.
And so when you have fat packed back on, then you're not even accomplishing anything. So you're in a worse place, than when you started. So, and that's why it's important that even with underlying medical conditions, it's, which is what we're going to be talking about, in the future series, how to actually look at obesity management or weight management as a lifestyle, as opposed to a number on the scale, and different things that you can do so that weight loss is not the be all and end all of what you're trying to achieve.
So the focus, what you're saying is focus shouldn't necessarily be weight loss. Focus should just be, let's be healthy.
Right, exactly. Let's so
it's not about losing weight to get to because I want to be skinny.
Number, yes.
It's about being a healthier weight for my height.
Exactly.
A healthier weight for my lifestyle type thing. So that it's all encompassing.
Exactly.
I think my main takeaway from our conversation now is that the first point of call when you're dealing with obesity is to even find the root cause. Where is this coming from?
My lifestyle choices.
And it's a lifestyle thing. So
what am I eating? What am I doing or not doing?
Yeah.
And what kind of medication am I on? Have I got any imbalances, any underlying medical conditions? Have I been dieting too strictly? Am I drinking too much sugar?
Yeah, that you're not paying attention to.
Right. And with movement, people underrate movement so much. It's unbelievable. Do you know that on a typical lounge day, you realize that you may not even have taken 300 steps.
And with the lockdown that has happened, that was the story of most people,
right?
As a lack of movement. I mean, the most movement is from the bedroom to the living room to the kitchen, back to the living room, back to bedroom.
And going to the kitchen is an event. At some point in my house, we would joke about, okay, so where are we going today? Let's go to the kids' room. Let's get dressed and go to the kids' room.
OMG.
Oh my goodness. So yeah, the movement is so, and you underrate movement until you start to actually keep count of how many steps you're taking. And according to, proven research, the minimum number of steps a day that you should take to keep yourself, to classify yourself as active is 10,000.
10,000.
And that's about a 2-hour leisurely walk, right? Or about 8 kilometers.
Yeah.
How many of us actually, people do that? Because we're sedentary, even outside of the lockdown.
Yeah.
The majority of our activity evolved around getting up in the morning, getting dressed, getting in the car.
So you're driving to your location, you get to work, you sit.
Probably sitting 2-3 hours in traffic, depending on where you're coming from.
And then different meetings, so you're still sitting.
Absolutely. And having snacks and, grabbing from the, peanut jar, crackers,
Getting
salted
movement
stuff.
in the workplace is actually a big thing that we need to deal with as a community, as in make the workplace a little more
it's a global health
active.
It's a global health issue. And then from the workplace, you get back in your car, for those of you who drive, and you're back so you're sitting essentially maybe 11, 12 hours a day. And you get home, and what do?
Sit in front of the TV.
Grab some dinner, and
then crawl to bed.
So if you count your total number of steps, you may not have even taken, because for those of us who have got drivers or would have parked right in front of your office entrance and all of that. So it's hard. We have to be deliberate about movement. And some people say, "Oh, I don't eat much. I don't even eat much. Where am I?" And you realize that the reason why you're overweight but not eating a lot is already because you're in metabolic decline. Yeah. Because nothing is our bodies are designed to move, and you're not doing anything with your body. Yeah. And so your muscles are even atrophying. So
think about it this way: you're not actually starting the engine,
right?
So the engine of the car has not necessarily revved up for
not
you
getting
to burn
warm
anything.
at all. You're not burning anything.
Yeah.
So everything you're eating is just sort of getting stored as excess energy
for the rainy day that there will be a famine, and then your body will need to
and then
feed on itself to survive.
Exactly. And then there's no famine, and so you just keep packing it on. So
what do you think? What's our way forward?
So our way forward, and what we're going to be discussing in future episodes, is what the different interventions for obesity management. And we're going to start to talk about weight loss, how to achieve sustainable weight loss in a way that you don't make weight loss by all means your goal. And that's why we use the word sustainable. Sustainable means you should be able to keep the weight off for 3 to 5 years minimum. Keep it off for life.
And don't be shocked if we encourage a surgical route. There's absolutely nothing wrong.
Especially depending on the level of obesity that you're in. There are different other strategies, surgical route and there are
a lot of
especially for extraction of stubborn fat and stuff like that. So we're going to be looking at all of that in the coming weeks. And hopefully enlighten our audience on the way forward with obesity and weight management.
Awesome.
Okay. So thank you guys for listening, and I enjoy talking about that topic. It's very close to my heart. And again, follow us at africabusinessradio.com, Africa Business Radio on Instagram, Twitter, and at True Living Africa on Instagram. Until then, I'm Uyok Hansen.
And I'm Oyin Talabi.
And thanks for tuning in.
Yes.
See you next
soon.
time.